Hi, I'm Will, and it's time for a war story here on the Geezer Guide to Better Living. This is going to be a two-part video because I don't like for my videos to be long, but I have to give you some background before I give you the real story. Anyway, I was part of the 101st Airborne Division and the 501st Signal Battalion. I was an E5 in the motor pool, and I was really sick and tired of the motor pool because if you're in the military, in the motor pool, you have to act like you're working. Even if your equipment is up to date and you're doing everything that you're supposed to do, they still want you to look like you're working. So, to make a long story short, one day we were in formation and they asked for volunteers. And if anybody that been in the military, the first thing your mother tell you to do is do not volunteer for nothing. But me being the hardhead rebel that I am, I raised my hand because they mentioned that it would get me out of the motor pool. And I was like, good, I want out of this damn motor pool. So I found out, as you know, they counted out about 12 of us out of the whole company, and they told all of us that we were going to go to school. And I was like, oh, I can do that. I can just go to school and, get out of the motor pool. And I found out that it was for NBC training. NBC stands for nuclear, biological, and chemical. And they leave out the warfare part of it. But that's what it's about. It's a class that was going to give us an identifier along with our regular job, which my job was a 31 November. I worked as a rec rig operator that was part of communications. And then they were going to have the other part on it that I was going to also be qualified for biological and nuclear hazard. So I was like, okay, that sounds cool. And I went to the class. It started off with 360 of us. No, I'm sorry, 160 of us, 168 of us, and only 36 people passed this class. It was a really tough class. It was the metric system was stumped me the most. Everything else was pretty easy because at that time I had a college education, and but the metric system is like Spanish. If you don't use it, you lose it. So I passed by the skin of my teeth on the metric system. But out of my whole company, only three of us passed the test, and we were uh, you in charge of the NBC uh, part of the company. That means that we did the classes, we did the training to make sure that people knew how to prepare themselves and decontaminate and to uh, get ready for any kind of nuclear biological hazard. So when I got this identifier, it put me up in a different level. That means that I was no longer in a motor pool. I basically only answered to two people, and that was the first sergeant and that was the chief warrant officer that was over that area. So everything, nobody else. That means that the company commander, he couldn't touch me. Other first sergeants, they couldn't touch me. I really had a officer's position as a non-commissioned person. I made sure, I came in, as long as my job was done, I could come in when I wanted to, and I can leave when I wanted to. Nobody ever questioned me or anything, so I was really happy about having this job. But the one thing it did, it turned me into the enemy. Everybody in the company hated me. Everybody in the whole battalion hated me because one thing about being an NBC officer, which I was an officer, but that's what they called me because I held an officer position, is that you don't want to see me ever. The only time you want to see me is in the lunch line, is you going to chow. But if in the first thing in the morning, if you saw me information and I was standing behind your platoon, that means that you were either going to get training or you're going to get gassed. And a lot of people did not like going to the gas chamber, and grown men will cry if they saw me in the morning and they'll be like, please don't stand behind us, please don't stand behind. I'm like, if I stand behind you or not, your ass getting gas. So I turned into the enemy. So uh, I went from being, one of the guys to a person that nobody wanted to be bothered with when they saw me. So that was something really that kind of like was different for me because I was always, you know, in the motor pool hanging out with the guys. I couldn't do that anymore, and because I was by myself, and most of the time I was with the first sergeant because also the part of my job was being an ops and a driver. So that was different and difficult. So all the time when you saw me, I didn't gas you every time I saw you. I gave training also, and people wouldn't want to listen, and especially if they had more rank than me, they always wanted to try to not listen to me, and I just say, okay, don't listen to me, and then for a sergeant to be in their face, you know, in an instant, he'd be like, okay, he holds the rank of officer, you're going to listen to him, I don't care how much rank you have. So that made me not liked by any commissioned officer or anybody that had more rank than me. So I uh, trained my people pretty good. I believe that I did, and I made sure I maintenance all of their equipment. I showed them how to work it. We did that on a regular basis. So when we got the call up to go to Desert Storm, Desert Shield as it was called first, I was pretty prepared for it, and I think that all of my people were prepared for it. So that was no problem at all. But I'm going to end this video here, and I'm going to give you part 2 next Monday, and we're going to talk about once we got to Desert Storm, how shit got real for me. Because at first, I was like the deer hunter. I really, had been to other conflicts, because they don't call them wars, and I had been there, done it, got the t-shirt, came home, nothing happened. But Desert Storm was totally different, and shit got real. So tune in for the part 2 of the story on Monday. Thanks for watching.